Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Paige, this is Seeking Alexandria. Guys, the time is here. We're giving some updated tea, thoughts, opinions, comparisons, what have you, on the two new Dior foundations. Now, if you are relatively new here or you stumbled onto this looking for the initial review of either of these, I will go ahead and link first the Dior Forever, which is the original reformulated Dior, and then I will also link my review of the Dior Forever Skin Glow Foundation, which, as we're going to hear, is like the more luminous of the two, and I will link that up here. Now, in those videos, I did tell you that these were very similar. They had a lot of very interesting and similar qualities to the original Dior, but they're also kind of quirky on their own. And I told you in 2 weeks I would be back to do an updated video, thoughts and comparisons and all of that. So that's what we're going to dive into today. And I think where I want to start is actually the difference between the original Dior, which, if you are not familiar, is this guy right here. And this is the one that has been raved. It is a cult classic. This is such an amazing foundation. And they went ahead, they reformulated it, and they came out with both of these foundations that we're talking about today. They wanted to expand that shade range a little bit. They wanted to go in, give you different finishes on the skin for, you know, normal to dry, normal to oily. That way everyone could kind of enjoy this formula a little more widespread, which I think is great. And again, both of those videos go into a little more detail on that. So I'm starting off by comparing these two because I think this is where a lot of people had like one of the biggest questions. Is this forever the same as this? Now, going through and reviewing both of these and comparing everything, there's a couple different main categories I'll be streaming through, which are the finish on the skin, the wearability, how well it mixed with others, how well it compared to this one, so on and so forth. So starting off, like I said, with this combination, I think the biggest difference that I noticed, which was very shocking to me, was actually the way that this one mixed with foundations compared with this foundation. So one of my favorite combinations of all time is this foundation mixed with like my Catrice Forever HD or my Dior Forever Full Coverage, one of those really nice full coverage rich in pigment foundations. That is one of my favorite combos with this original guy right here. So I was really excited when I got this and I was like, I'm gonna mix it, I'm gonna get in that, I want to know what it's all about. And what I found is that across the board, both of these new foundations from Dior, they don't have the ability to mix quite as well. They're not quite as universal as this one was. No matter what I added, how much, nothing like that mattered. It always went on, looked smooth, looked poreless. I always looked perfect. And with this new formula, I don't notice that as much, but it does have a couple qualities that make that okay, which I'll get to in a second. So the first thing I'm going to say is that as far as mixing, it is a little different. This one is a lot more finicky. Now, the reason I stumbled onto this entire mixing conundrum was actually because of this original pairing right here, the original Dior Forever and my Catrice HD Liquid Full Coverage. This was such an iconic pair for me. This has such beautiful pigmentation. It's like $8 or $9, $10, something like that. Super affordable, very drugstore, and this bottle lasts so long. I'm able to mix it in with so many foundations and it just adds beautiful coverage, seamless, and it never seems to affect much of anything, especially where this original Dior was concerned. So given that this was such a favorite, I thought, okay, I'm gonna go ahead, take the new Forever, combine them and see what I get. And I was actually really shocked at a couple of things. Number one, the way that these two colors mixed together actually was making my skin look very gray if I added too much. So I wasn't a big fan of the color combo. But that aside, I noticed that I had to be very careful how much of this I added. I had to top off at 1 or 2 boop boops into my foundation for the entire face, which typically I was able to mix however much I wanted of this with the original Dior. Never did I notice an issue. So if one day I added more, one day I added less, someday I needed more coverage, some days I needed less, it wasn't a big issue. Well, not with this, honey boo boo child. I could only do 1 to 2 drops before I started to notice a big difference in the way that it not only colored my skin, but the way that it sat on my skin. It was almost like too much of this and they fought very harshly, like an oil and water situation. And that was something I had not previously experienced, which was kind of off-putting because I'm like, okay, odd, but whatever. So once that combination didn't work so well, I went in and I started mixing this with other foundations, whether it was the NARS Natural Radiant or the Dior Forever Full Coverage, and I did find that overall it mixed okay, but my true standout way to wear this foundation is just by itself, which I think is so bizarre because when I was going in with my original Dior Forever, that was not the case. I loved it, I thought it looked beautiful, but I found it almost lackluster when it was alone. And that could be a myriad of things. That could be because it was so dark on my skin that I had to add concealer, like extra concealer to make everything the right shade. It could be the finish of this, which is slightly different from this. I'll get there in a second. But there's a lot of different factors I think that could lead to that I can't really speculate on. But overall, the mixing of this one is a lot more finicky, which at first I was a little bit off put by. I was like, no, I'm not okay with that. However, I'm okay with it now because I love the way this looks alone. And I will say that if you do struggle with extra acne or hyperpigmentation and kind of acne and stuff that I've dealt with previous to in my life, which is why I had to mix all of these foundations together to add so much coverage, I will say I think the original does mix better, but this one is able to build up really nice, beautiful coverage. I have a lot of hyperpigmentation, scarring, and acne, especially like down in this region on both sides of my face, and I find that this gives me very beautiful coverage. It's a nice medium buildable to almost full coverage, which I think is beautiful. Now, it's not full coverage like that Catrice foundation. That you take like 4 drops and you're just like, wow, I have full coverage. Not that kind. We're not talking like a Dermacol full coverage, nothing like that. This is a medium to full, right in between there. You can build it up. It looks beautiful, and it doesn't get cakey on top of itself, which I think is beautiful as well. So that's the first thing, the mixing. Different between the two. And like I said at the beginning, I wasn't too happy about it at first, but I did grow to be okay with it because I just love the way this looks on my skin. I've tried it with so many different primers and products on top, underneath, blending it differently, and no matter how much I work with it, I just love that facet of it. And just as a side note, as I'm going through these foundations, I wore these two back to back one day, like one day, then the next, then the next, then the next, and I went back and forth between the two so much in the last 2 weeks. I actually don't think, short of maybe 1 or 2 foundation reviews, I don't think I've worn anything but these two foundations, really wanting to go through and learn all of this. So this is coming from a lot of wearing and a lot of testing, just so you guys know. So one thing I do want to touch on real quick while we're still on this Dior foundation is the finish, because this is something, yet again, I think a lot of people had questions on, and I do not think that this is as matte as the original. I think that this, as far as the way it sits on the skin, the way that it dries down, the way that it sets down, and even lasts throughout the day, is much more of a velvet matte feel, look, and all of that to this one. This one, in my opinion, was more matte, more drying, not in a bad way, but just a little bit more. So if I had to put them like on a scale, I would say this one is probably 1 or 2 like clicks above this one on the mattification scale. Definitely, like I said, more dry down, a little bit more dry, but not dry in the sense that it makes you feel scaly, not dry in the sense that drier skinned people couldn't use this. It just was a little more dry, so this one's a little more comfortable. In my opinion, if you are the type that maybe you have dry skin, something to that effect, but you still love the look of matte foundations, because girl, it happens. I'm going to tell you right now, sometimes oily people, we want to have dewy skin, and that's difficult. Sometimes dry skin people, y'all want to have matte skin. Nothing wrong with that. And I think that this would actually be a really nice formula if that's the look you're going for, because it isn't super drying, it isn't so matte, but it does give you a beautiful, almost matte velvet feel, which is stunning on the skin, and I love that. So I do want to jump over real quick to the Skin Glow version and go through those same points with this foundation. So as far as the mixing, I noticed a large difference between these two. Like I said, this one can mix okay. It's not like the best mixer. It's not my favorite. I prefer it alone, but it can mix a little. This one, no. I did not like this mixed with any foundation at all for any reason. I felt like it was separated. I feel like this one has like that glowy, luminous moment to it, which actually makes it separate from every other foundation that I tried to mix it with. Now, that being said, does it mix well? No, but I love this one alone as well. It's beautiful. The coverage is very nice. It's so stunning. The way that it sets on the skin, sets into the pores. Like, overall, I think both of these, the common thread is, do I prefer them mixed? No, which is a huge difference from the original, like I've said 100 times on my channel, but they both look beautiful alone. Now, drifting into the finish on the skin, how it looked, all of that. This one, as we can tell by the names, by the titles, by both of my videos, I think this one is the much more glowy version of the Forever. Now, I'm not saying dewy, because I think dewy is a very big stretch for this foundation. I actually think it is very, very appropriately named. And what I mean by that is this is not the type of dewy foundation you are looking for if you have super, super dry skin and you're like, wow, I want my skin to look wet. I want my skin to just look so wet that I just got done sweating at the gym. There are a lot of people that have such dry skin. That is their preferred feel. That's their preferred look, their texture, what have you. And the best way that I can describe this is, I think, to put it on a scale. So all the way very, very matte, the mattest foundation is over here. The most dewy ass, wet looking foundation is over here. And then very neutral is right in the middle. So a very natural finish. These are both the perfect in between of both of those endpoints. So you come in half, you come in half. that is these foundations. This has a beautiful glow. It sits nicely on the skin. Again, it gives you a beautiful light luminosity, glow from within kind of look, but it also does wear nice on my normal to oily skin. And as someone with normal to oily skin, I can tell you that it is difficult to find that beautiful balance where you can get a glowy, radiant look, but also still not break out or not have breakage all over your face and actually last a very long time on the skin. And this one did that. So it is a beautiful midpoint between super dewy and a very natural satin finish, which I love. So along the same lines of how I think this one could work for someone with normal to oily skin and give them that nice glow effect without it being too much on oily skin, it's the same in reverse for this foundation. I think this would be a foundation you can try if you have normal to dry skin and you've always wanted to get to play around with that velvet texture, that nice light velvet feel. You want to lightly powder your skin, maybe not powder it at all, depending on your skin and how dry it is. I think this would actually be a really nice venture that you could drift into and be relatively safe, because this has a beautiful way of sitting on the skin. And when I tell you, girl, I have went in with these. I have powdered light, I have powdered heavy, both of these foundations multiple times across the board. And what I find is that they both have a nice way, especially this velvet matte one, of coming back to that nice natural velvet matte feel and never being too overdone, too matte, or too cakey, which is so stunning, because a lot of matte foundations, they're already so matte, and as you add more powder, they're just matte, 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 and they grow in that matteness, if you will, if that's even a word. And the same thing with the dewy luminous side. You know, you can go in with those foundations and you can set them and they'll just look cakey, or they'll look really chunky when you go in and add powder, because they don't want to mix with powder. They're meant for one type of skin. It needs to be dry skin, and they need to not be set. And I guess in saying all of this, I want to just round out that both of these are suitable kind of for a little bit of crisscrossing if you have normal to dry or normal to oily on either side of the spectrum. But I will say this one does have a more beautiful glowy finish to it than this one does. They do dry a little bit differently. Again, this one not setting down quite as heavy, and this one setting down a little bit more on that matte velvet side. But both options are very nice, and I have been able, with normal to oily skin, to wear both and enjoy both. Now, I do want to dive in as well to the longevity of these and how they last on my skin personally. I find that the matte velvet one does last a little teeny tiny bit longer on my skin, especially on the T-zone, which is where I get a little bit more oily, and on the nose. It doesn't break up or get nasty nearly as quick, which I think is to be expected because it has that nice matte finish on it. However, I'm very impressed with this one because it puts up a hell of a fight. Like the other day I wore it, 10 hours, beautiful. I went in, I touched up with a little light powder, resprayed my face. She was good to go like new for another 2 or 3. So again, both of them, they touch up, they last beautiful on the skin. I do find that for my skin, this one lasts a little bit longer, but I think that's indicative of my skin type. So I would imagine the reverse would be true if you had drier skin and you were going in with this one. But I think overall, between these two foundations, what I love most about this release is that it took such an iconic formula that's so beautiful that some people I know had a hard time wearing, whether it was shade range, the way it sat on the skin, setting it, the mattified effect, whatever the case was. I know this was beautiful and a lot of people loved it, but I also know that if you were on like that normal to dry scale, it was a little difficult for some people to work with without adding a bunch of other sprays or oils or things of that nature, because it was so much more on that mattified scale. And I think that coming out with both of these options was a really beautiful way to make this iconic formula even better. Yes, it changed it a little bit and it took away a little property here or there, but overall these are so much more usable and like people friendly, skin friendly, type of skin and effect friendly than that original was. It's like you took it, you made it better, in my opinion. I love the way these last, and in a lot of instances, because Dior went through and made these changes, I actually like the way that these sit on the skin better than the original, which I think is the whole point. You know, as a brand, whenever you're going through, you're evolving, you're changing, you want to do more, you want to change a luminosity or do this or do that. I think they went about this the right way. I can't wait to see if they continue to grow and expand that shade range, which I think they will, and I think that'll be a beautiful day when that happens. But as far as now, I love that they expanded it a little bit. I love that we're able to see a little bit more wearability, usability, and oh, also, I wanted to mention too, primers and concealers worked pretty much the same on both of these across the board. Because this one has more of a glow to it, I do have to really make sure that I go in with a pore minimizing primer or a pore filling primer, because glowy on oily skin, and especially when you have as much texture as I do, girl, it can get a little bit rumply bumply up in there. It can really emphasize texture if you're not careful. But I did find that I've been going in a lot with my Tatcha Silk Canvas, and that has been a great primer for both of these. And overall, I haven't noticed any issues as far as breakouts, as far as clogged pores, anything with either of these. these, I find Dior to be actually, like, if I'm being dead nuts honest with you, one of those foundations that I reach for so often that I'm like, wow, is it wrong that I like these two foundations that much? Like, when I told you guys 2 weeks ago that I would continue to wear and play with these, I was like, oh, what if I don't like them? Like, what if I don't want to do that? And I found that I was actually gravitating towards doing that without even thinking it on some days, because I have just been so in love with the way that these sit on the skin and the way that they pair with my other products. Like, I can't explain it. I can't put it into words. The way that these look on the skin, on camera, I think is beautiful. I can tell you right now, girl, my selfies, these look so beautiful. If you take just like random selfies or anything, these are so beautiful. The way they reflect and refract the light, send it back to that camera. Oh, girl, they look so beautiful. They actually like somehow filter your skin when you're on camera, which I think is a beautiful like blurring effect that they have. But then even in a still photo, like I took my phone off of portrait mode, which we all know that's a gamble some days, and I was in lower light and these still looked beautiful on the skin. Like, just everything about the way that they sit, feel, stay, I am obsessed with. They both touch up beautifully. I can again use all of my normal products with them. I haven't found anything that I would normally use that doesn't work with these, and I think that also says a lot. And anyways, you guys, that is it for this update. I am so grateful that you guys wanted to see this. Thank you so much for all commenting and letting me know down below in the comments of both of these videos that you wanted an update, because I wasn't sure if people would want 2 videos on the same foundation, but I do think that this was a big enough launch, and it was also so different that I thought you guys might want this like update. You might really enjoy getting to get down, get nitty, get gritty, and it's not so much a video where there's like inserts and there's flashy things. It's just so much information, and there's no way that I can really deliver it to you. I can't deliver it to you with images. I can't deliver it to you in any other way other than to tell you my experience, and I'm always so grateful that you guys not only watch it, but that you guys want that experience and you want my opinion. So thank you for letting me know always down below what you guys are wanting to see, what you're into, what you're not into, because those are huge for me. That lets me know that I'm making content that is geared for you guys and what you actually want to see. So thank you so much for that. And yeah, that is it, guys. I really hope that this was helpful. I hope this was everything you guys needed in an update and more. I have been loving them. I will not stop wearing them. I wish I knew what my hair was doing right now, because that would be nice. But anyways, guys, I feel like I could mess with my hair all day. Sorry, but I am excited. I'm glad this video is out there. Let me know if you guys have any other thoughts, questions, comments, whatnot down below. Let me know what other videos you would like to see, as always, down in the comments, because y'all know I'm checking. Y'all know I'm like, what is going on? Which, by the way, YouTube, I see you. YouTube hasn't been telling me I have any comments for the last week. I'm like, pretty sure I have comments. I click my video and it's like 34, 5, 37 comments, and I'm like, thanks for having my back, YouTube. Where was my notification telling me I had comments, bro? Like, what's going on, girl? They do this to me every once in a while, but I'm reading them. I know they're there. So let me know down below what y'all want to see, because I'm here for it. And if there's any new products, as always, that you'd like tested, looked at, considered, whatnot, let me know that as well. And oh, while you're down there, you can also scoot on up to that description box and check me out on Instagram and on Twitter. I'm on Instagram a ton, so that's always the best place to find me outside of YouTube. And you can also subscribe and turn on your notifications if you have not yet. Hi, hey, hello. I put up new videos 5 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. They go up bright and early between 6 and 7 a.m. my time. And girl, it is a fun, fresh lit time over here. We talk about everything makeup. We talk about, oh my God, what is good, what is not good, what is updated, what is not updated, what needs to be updated, what is not so good. Like, we cover all the products that are new, old, and otherwise, and I love doing it with you guys every morning. It is so much fun. So definitely subscribe if you had a good time. And that is it. My gosh, you guys, I feel like this was such a productive video, and I don't even know why, but I'm so happy, and thank you guys all so much for watching. Please do not forget to have a great day, night, weekend, whatever it is when you're watching this, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. The first thing that I noticed that was very different is actually the way, so starting off with like the similarities and the overall updated tea on these 2 Dior foundations wait. So moving forward, okay. That's what I should do. I should just bring the camera in and be like, don't you see? Can't you see by looking at me? Girl, it looks so good. What are you talking about? Like, that should be my proof. Like, I don't need to review them because look at my skin. I'm so perfect. Like, that's my whole review, and then cut the camera. Yes. The next thing we're going to touch on is the actual, what am I looking for? Skin finish, thank you. Now, that being said, I do have a more normal to oily skin now, and I used to have very oily skin, and I used to think that this was a lot more matte on the skin. Skin, okay. So I do want to touch on real quick with, okay. So I do want to if you used this one as a mixing foundation, keep that in mind. You'll really have to work with that formula, work with that algorithm, how much you add, what color it is, because one of the, yet again, biggest things what is that? And what had me stumble upon this? Okay. And what had me... Okay, is this a joke? Are we hanging cupboards in the kitchen? Hello?